For a good long while now, I've wanted to make a video where I take a bunch of awesome characters from various fighting games and mash their designs together, because I really love the designs of characters in fighting games. And since Mortal Kombat 1 has finally come out and lots of people have enjoyed the other Mortal Kombat videos I've made this year, I thought I would finally use this concept and just use Mortal Kombat characters as the base for each design. I also researched the lore for all of these different games so that I could write stories for each of these fusion characters, and while I definitely don't know everything about these universes because I tried to learn the lore for BlazBlue and Guilty Gear in one sitting, but at least I learned enough to write some decent stories for these characters. So let's see how this goes, shall we?
Let's go. Hit like if you want, subscribe if you feel like, but either way, enjoy the show.
There is a universe in which the fire god Liu Kang rewrote history, and in his new era, all beings would have the opportunity to find peace. But across the vast multiverse, there were still many other worlds that were rife with conflict. There is another universe that has its own fair share of alternate rewritten timelines, along with a hefty dose of time travel and warring combatants. Here we may find Felicia Syzoth. She is from a land called Cocotera, an isolated village on an island of Outworld where resides a race of cat people. Cocotera had fallen on hard times, and food was often scarce. Hunters from the main cities of Outworld had poached their forests near clear of food, and the people of Cocotera had little in the way of money to purchase more food from the other villages. Luckily, a plan would soon be concocted to help the whole village by one of its few outcasts. Felicia was of this village and of this same species, but was unique among her people for having the ability to take on a more monstrous reptilian form as well as her common one. Many thought her to be quite strange and feared her alternate form as a sort of curse that could potentially be passed on to others in their village. So, Felicia had long felt like an outsider and desired to find a way to gain acceptance from her people. She learned that the Emperor of Outworld, Khan Pyron, was going to challenge Earthrealm to Mortal Kombat, with full intent to become the realm's new ruler. But he had yet to make the official challenge, as he wanted many of the realm's greatest warriors assassinated before he initiated the tournament. In fact, he was offering a massive reward for the head of a warrior named Ragna to be brought to him. This young warrior had been possessed by the soul of the god of thunder and lightning, and that, paired with the boy's incredible fighting skills, made him more than a threat to Khan Pyron's plans. And so Felicia got an idea. She was a formidable warrior herself and decided to go and hunt down Ragna, collect the bounty on his head, and use the money to bring food and prosperity back to her people. If she became the one to save their village, then people would have to accept her, and maybe even embrace her alternate form, if she showed how it could be used to help her people. And so she set off to Earthrealm to track down Ragna, not realizing that even in her common form, she'd draw a lot of attention to herself. Anytime she was seen in public, people would be filming her for her odd cat-like form, and those in the know would quickly piece together that she was from Outworld. This would lead to her being hunted down herself by a man whose pastime, when he wasn't acting in B-grade Hollywood movies, was seeking out creatures from other realms that were trying to wreak havoc in Earthrealm. This man's name was Donovan Cage. He had abilities himself passed down through his bloodline from a vampiric cult that had come to Earth from an area of Outworld called Vaeternus, and while this trait did keep him young and fit-looking with far more ease than the average human, allowing him to remain longer on the acting path, it also gave him a thirst for blood that often caused him frustration and fueled his resentment for creatures of Outworld. He was able to track down Felicia on his hunt, but she was more than capable of defending herself from him, utilizing both her fighting forms. Despite being hunted by the man, she was actually quite pleasant towards Cage, and after escaping him for the first time, she watched one of his movies out of curiosity. Then another and another. She quickly became obsessed with the filmmaking world and celebrity culture on Earth, and soon changed the mission she was on. Hunting down the godly possessed Ragna became a sort of side quest, as she pursued a career in acting, hoping that becoming famous in Earthrealm would finally sate her desire to feel accepted. In one universe, Earthrealm went through its usual course of evolution into the age of technology, but Eventually, all of the precious electronics humanity had concocted would be of no use at all. On the eve of the year 2000, a worldwide blackout occurred that would permanently disable the use of all technology, at least any that utilized the more common power sources on the planet at the time. Some isolated groups who knew how to use magic, or at least channel it from other realms, were able to quickly find new ways to keep their own technology going, and, as one might expect, world governments were soon scrambling to acquire these magical methods for themselves. Which is exactly what Cammy Liang was worried about. Cammy was an English Special Forces operative whose codename was Bad Guy B, and she knew that trouble was brewing all around her, but knew further still that her brother's people may use this opportunity to try and rise to power over the planet themselves. You see, before becoming a Special Forces agent, she had learned her incredible fighting skills by training alongside her brother in a group they led together called the Shadowlin. The Shadowlin were a highly trained private military group with largely magical-based strengths. Both Cammy and her brother, M. Bison, had been born with inherent magical gifts, and that had helped them to seek out others with similar abilities to unify and use their clan as a deterrent for any magical or elsewise powerful invaders from other realms. But Bison had always wanted more. He'd seen the magic that their clan could harness as proof that they were already far ahead of the rest of the world and that they should rise up as its new leaders to take humanity into an age of magic. Cammy could understand the desire on one level, but saw the lust for power and control in her brother's eyes and couldn't allow him to move forward with this plan, knowing that his intentions weren't fully benevolent. She fled the Shadowlin and informed the British government of her brother's intentions, and the small but vastly powerful army he had at his disposal. And that was all before the blackout. Cammy led a squad as quickly as possible to investigate what the Shadowlin intended to do. But they were already on the move. They'd infiltrated multiple world governments and struck deals to provide them with methods of harnessing magic in exchange for power and influence over the various countries' decisions moving forward. Many agreed to the terms out of desperation, both wanting to return any form of power to their people, but also seeing the incredible potential of constructing new technology, and more specifically, new weapons, using this magic. You see, Bison and Shadowlin had been developing a new type of physical enhancements for their warriors, called cyber gears. These cybernetically enhanced soldiers were intended to usher in a new era and new evolution for humanity, but Cammy was worried that the technology was not nearly as ready as Bison thought. Cammy knew that while governments of the world were embracing all her brother was giving them, they were far too quickly gaining powers that they couldn't control, and under it all, Bison had the full intention to have his own people overthrow the leaders that he was currently pretending to help. But things only got worse when the Back Realm came knocking. The Back Realm was the realm believed to grant every other realm with the ability to use magic, and their leader was far too happy by the chaos running rampant across Earthrealm. You see, he was a god of chaos, and thought that this trying time was the perfect opportunity to challenge Earthrealm to Mortal Kombat. And so, Cammy not only had to utilize her fighting prowess, magic, and her trusty chainsword weapon, the Junkyard Killer, to hunt down her brother and stop him from gaining more influence, while also preparing to fight in a tournament to save her very realm from an even more dangerous ruler.
I should give people context for what's about to happen in this video, but I don't really want to, except in maybe a flash frame that'll be really frustrating to try and pause and read. Anyway, here's this.
In yet another universe exists a race of beings with a similar problem to Felicia, except in this case these people wore out their food supply on their own. This world's version of the Vaternians, like in other realms, are a race of vampires that require blood of other beings to sustain themselves. Nitara Varanus used to live among these people, but saw the trouble they were headed into and fled her very realm for one where she thought she could find food much more readily available. She came to Earthrealm in the late 1940s and found frequent meals in American mafia-strewn streets. And she quickly caught the eye of a very powerful man. Kano Medici was one of the heads of the Medici Mafia, and had a fair few skilled warriors under his command, but thought Nitara could be the best of them. She spent much of her time working for Kano trying to impress him, as he'd become somewhat like a father figure to her. He'd consistently find her food in the form of whomever the Medici Mafia needed killed next, and put her up in a far more luxurious home than she'd had back in Vaeternus. She was proving herself as a powerful resource to the family, but she wanted to be able to help them even more, and so she started seeking out ways to enhance her own abilities. She searched for some time in her new home city and eventually learned of a secretive lab run by a cybernetic being called Sector, who went by the code name Brain Drain. The lab existed under the guise of a company called the Myers Baby Food Corporation, and here, many strange scientific creations were being made. It seemed Brain Drain had somehow managed to access knowledge from other timelines of Earth, from both alternate pasts and distant futures. He utilized this information to make technological marvels that should not have existed in this period of time, including fully robotic humanoids. Nitara offered Sector a fortune that she didn't actually have in exchange for cybernetic upgrades to her body, ones that could allow her to be faster and stronger and let her draw nutrients from something other than blood so that she no longer needed to rely on it. Knowing she worked for Kano Medici, Sector trusted that she was good for the vast sum she offered, and he gave her all the upgrades he could, including providing her with a very strange piece of technology, a near-sentient level hat that could spawn arms and shift its limbs into various weapons. She became his absolute finest work, but in return all she offered him was death. She tore his body to pieces, drinking the electricity from his cybernetic body with her new enhancements, then fled, ready to embrace her new upgrades and be the most powerful tool in the Medici family arsenal. But little did she know, Sector had many failsafes in case something like this ever occurred. The second his cybernetic body had detected lethal damage, his mind had been transferred into another body he'd built for himself, and now he wanted revenge on Nitara and the Medici family. Now Nitara must find a way to properly slay Sector before he can create new, dangerous threats to the Medici family and to the very father figure that she's so desperate to impress. In an alternate version of Edenia, called Piltenia, a princess ruled under her mother, ready to take the throne when it was her time. Mileko Kazuma was the firstborn daughter of the Queen of Piltenia. She was a very inventive child who loved constructing fascinating devices using a blend of magic from her own realm and technology acquired from places like Earthrealm. She was a very inventive child who loved constructing fascinating devices using a blend of magic from her own realm and technology acquired from places like Earthrealm, though she let this hobby fall to the side as she grew older and took on more responsibilities in the kingdom, especially after the death of her father. The king had been killed some time ago, but Mileko and her mother had managed to hold the kingdom together through the loss. Although, even in this time, they'd never managed to create a good relationship with the people of the lower kingdom, Idazan. Mileko had thought little about this place, as she was of the same mind as many in Piltenia, that the people of Idazan were the troublesome riffraff of their kingdom, who lived in the more crime-ridden region because of their own bad decisions. But her mother saw it differently. She believed the people of the lower kingdom were highly innovative, and she did what she could to unify the two regions. But she wouldn't achieve this before her own untimely death. One night, a monstrous demon ogre came to the Piltenia palace, and, while the queen was a fierce warrior in her own right, she was no match for the creature who slayed her, but left Mileko alive, stating, "Your own body will be your undoing, princess." Unfortunately, it wouldn't be long after that Mileko would learn what the demon meant. Just as she was forced to take on the throne of Piltenia early, she started to fall ill. She soon learned that she had within her a demon gene that would slowly warp her body into a demonic form, granting her new abilities but also overtaking her mind and turning her into a monster. She had to find a way to correct this without the people learning of what was happening to their new queen. And more unfortunate still, rumors were spreading that the creature who'd slain the queen had been sent from Outworld, and that the ruler of those lands was now eager to challenge Piltenia to Mortal Kombat, while their people were in a state of unrest. With this in mind, Mileena thought that whoever had sent the demon must have known about her dangerous gene. But who were they, and how had they known? That of course wasn't important in that moment. More pressing was her deteriorating health state. She sought healers in all areas of Piltenia, but found nobody who could help her. Eventually, she ran out of options and, for the first time in years, ventured down into the lower kingdom of Idazan. At first, she was repulsed by the dirty, degraded appearance of her surroundings and the rambunctious nature of the people, but she quickly started to see all the impressive technology people were inventing and utilizing in this region. It often looked scrappy and hacked together using pieces of discarded works, but the people here had created all manner of impressive machines, such as flight boards and mechanical limbs. It reawakened Mileena's love of invention, and within only a few weeks of coming down to the lower kingdoms and spending time with its people, she had not found someone else to make her a solution to her problem, but she had created one herself. She developed not a serum or medicine, but a time-altering pendant that she kept on her body under her clothing that froze the spread of her demonic gene, keeping her from getting any worse. On top of that, using the same technology, she created a device that would allow her to rewind herself back briefly through time. A particularly useful combat tool. With her new solution to her problem and a newfound respect for the people of the lower kingdom, she returned home, just as the rumored threat came to their palace doors. Outworld was challenging Piltenia to Mortal Kombat, but more surprising was the man delivering the message was Mileena's own lost grandfather, Shang Mishima. Mileena, of course, felt betrayed, but remained confident in accepting the challenge, knowing that if worst came to worst and she needed a leg up in battle, she could simply find a way to scrub her demon gene temporarily forward in time and embrace her more monstrous form for combat.
I don't know what you all think, but maybe 3 characters for fighting games was a little bit too much. Maybe I should try this same kind of thing, but with just 2 different characters mashed together. Or maybe you all like this. Let me know in the comments if you want more of this or something else kind of similar to this. And if you like this, you might like my Disney villains in Mortal Kombat, or maybe Avatar: The Last Airbender mixed with Mortal Kombat. Also, if you want the high-resolution art and the inks from episodes like this one a day before a video is released, you can get that by joining the PopCross Studios Patreon, where I'm also currently doing weekly podcasts. But besides that, that's all for today, except of course we're ending this video on some kind of positive or inspiring note. And the thought I want to leave people with today is a quote from a man named Michelle C. Clark, who said that you're under no obligation to disprove the assumptions that other people have made about who you are and what you stand for. In some cases, it might be worth trying if people have the wrong idea about you, but it's important to remember that in some cases, if someone is determined to misunderstand you, then they're going to keep misunderstanding you regardless of how you phrase who you are or what you stand for. I hope that's inspiring, or I guess thought-provoking. I love you all, and I'll see you all in the next episode on Friday. Goodbye.